Welcome, family, to today's lesson on betrayal. Before we get into the lesson, could I please ask you to like, share, and subscribe, as this would help push the lessons so other people can listen to it. Okay, today we're looking at Judas' betrayal story, and it's known all over the world for him betraying our Messiah. But in this lesson, we will be looking at two other examples on the subject of betrayal, because Judas was not the only one who betrayed someone in the Bible. The Bible is filled with stories of betrayal, such as we see Satan, as the world calls him, Satan, betrays Eve in the garden in the book of Genesis. We also see Peter, whose name is Kepha in Hebrew, who betrays our Messiah. Cain betrays Abel, Joseph's brothers, so forth and so on. We also see that Delilah betrays Samson. Saul betrays David. David betrayed Uriah. And so there are so much examples in the Bible about betrayal. So the Bible is not afraid of dealing with betrayal. Not at all. This subject is quite popular in the scriptures. But let's look at betrayal. Let's look at the meaning first of all. The word betrayal means delivered up or handed over. It's one of the most painful experience you can go through. It shatters trust. It leaves you questioning everything and often feels deeply personal. But betrayal isn't new. No, it is not, brothers and sisters. Betrayal isn't new. It all started in the Garden of Eden. And I'm sure you must have heard of situations, for example, whereby sisters of the same blood snatching their other sisters' husbands. We have seen cases, heard of cases, where a house help snatched the husband of the woman who employed her. You might also have shared a business idea with a friend, and the next thing you know, they stole your idea, telling the world that the idea came from them. I am sure out there in this big wide world, some of you might have experienced that or heard of stories like that. And here is a thought that you might not even be aware of. Please consider this, family. Not all of your circle of friends like each other. Let me repeat that. Not all of your circle of friends like each other. One friend will sabotage your relationship with another friend of yours just because of jealousy of the relationship that you have with the other friend. And I have a testimony about that because it happened to me. I had a very dear friend, and one day I met with her and she was very angry. And to cut a long story short, she told me that another friend told her that I said something about her which was a complete and utter lie. Now, the worst of this all, not just the lie from the other person, but the friend who I trusted and loved believed the lie. And she said to me, although I was so upset, I was devastated, she believed the lie. That's the bit that wounds. And then years later, I forgave her, but it shattered and cracked the relationship. And years later, she came and found me. And you know what she told me? That the person who told her the lie came and confessed that I did no such thing. They were jealous of our relationship and she wanted to break it up by telling a lie. So, family, be aware that not all of your circle of friends will like each other. Now, did I speak to her? Yes, I did. Did I forgive her? Yes, I did. Did the friendship remain? No, it didn't. I see her, I was polite, but we could never, ever go back to that place. If she had defended me and said no, or even spoke to me and called me and questioned me, said, did I do? She'd never even give me a chance. She told me out of her own mouth, I believe. And you cannot fight against someone who told you where they believe something. So that's an example. So be aware again, not all of your friends like each other, and some of them are jealous of the relationship that you might have with other friends. Okay. And in fact, the Bible is filled with stories where we even see the closest companions turn their backs on the people they once stood by. And today we'll explore two powerful examples of betrayal from the scriptures, and we will unpack the lessons they offer us. Now, whether you've been betrayed by a friend, a family member, or even yourself, this video will provide insight, hope, and practical steps to heal and to grow. So let's look at our first scripture on the subject, and it's taken from Psalm 55, verse 12. Psalm 55, verse 12. For it is not an enemy who taunts me, then I could bear it. Nor is it one who has hated me, who insolently exalts himself against me, then I could hide from him. But it is you, a man my equal and my counsel, my companion and my familiar friend. We who had sweet fellowship together, who walked to the house of the Most High in company. Verse 15. Let death come deceitfully upon them. Let them go down alive to Sheol, the nether world, the place of the dead. For evil of every kind is in their dwelling, and in their hearts, in their midst. As for me, I shall call upon Elohim, and Yah will save me. Now let's look at the lessons we can learn from Psalm 55. Betrayal hurts more from those we trust and not so much from our enemies. So, the lesson we can learn, we can expect to be betrayed from adversaries, oh yes, from our enemies, but betrayal by a friend or a loved one cuts much deeper. Why? Because it breaks trust and it breaks and crack open intimacy. And now these verses reflect the deep pain of betrayal by someone close to King David. And he expresses that if the betrayal had come from an obvious enemy, he could have handled it. But the pain is sharper. Why? Because it came from someone he trusted. And many of you may be feeling and can relate to that exact feeling that King David was feeling. We can understand that the closer the relationship, the more vulnerable you are. While trust is vital, you must also guard your heart with wisdom. There are friends in our lives, associates, people that we know. We need wisdom and discernment to navigate around relationships. Otherwise, we will end up in pain after pain, family. You may have a number of friends, but there is one in particular you would not trust with certain information about your personal life. And this is where you will need discernment. Yes, you will need discernment on what you can share with people, or especially those who are close to you. You need to be aware of their weaknesses before you divulge your innermost to them. Be warned, family. Doesn't mean to say you walk around skeptical all the time, but you need to walk in wisdom. Not all of your friends, you can put your hand on your heart and say, they will never betray me. You don't know that. You know why? Because you do not see or know their heart. So Psalm 55 shows us how did David say? We who had sweet fellowship together. We walked to the house of the Most High in company. These people he's talking about, the person he's speaking about, they walked to the house of worship, and they were the ones that betrayed him. And the fact is that in every journey of life, every fact of journey of life, even believers going to the same house of worship will turn around and betray you. And that includes the pastor, an elder, a brother, or a sister. So, what key points can we take from that? What was David's response to his betrayal? Well, King David openly expressed his pain to whom? Not to his neighbor, not somebody in text or on WhatsApp or on Facebook. He took his pain to Elohim, showing that it's okay to pour out your feelings, my feelings, in prayer when you have been betrayed. And listen to the pain. David is not hiding his feelings of how he really feels, but he cries. Why? He cries. And his cry was not rooted in hatred, but in a desire for divine justice. We can also learn from this. How? Recognizing emotional honesty in our pain. So reiterate that again. We see King David acknowledge Yah's control over life and death, and he trusts Yah sovereignty. He trusts his sovereignty over his betrayers. So he took it in prayer. What did he say in Psalm 55, verse 15? Let death come deceitfully upon them, and let them go down alive to Sheol. Now, some of us would say, oh my goodness, that's very heavy. But he was just being honest, and it's not up to him to answer his own prayer. Why did King David pray such a heartfelt prayer? Because this verse reflects David's raw emotional response to betrayal. He calls for justice, expressing a desire for his betrayers to face what? Severe consequences. His language was intense, illustrating the depth of his pain and the sense of injustice he felt. And sometimes we can be so hypocritical. Someone wounds us and hurt us deeply, but because of the false teaching that we receive, we go to the Father with this nice ribbons and bows around our prayers. And inside deeply, that's not what we are feeling. I know the joke of it all, the Father knows that's not how you're feeling. So you might as well come clean and pray like David prayed and leave it to the Father. But what does he say? In verse 15, for evil and every kind is in their dwelling and in their hearts, in their midst. That's what he said. They are evil. So you can see the passion. He's talking to the Father, for evil of every kind is in their dwelling and in their hearts. And as for me, what did he say? I shall call upon Elohim and Yah will save. So the application we need to have here is take your hurts to Yahweh. Don't suppress your pain, my brothers or my sisters. Healing starts when we acknowledge our emotions. Acknowledge your emotion before the Most High. Let no one tell you that when someone betrays you, that when it pays you a visit, that is not painful, or telling you to get over it. It is a wound inflicted by someone you trusted, and that is the worst kind of wound ever. And carrying on with the application, when you're hurt by others, it's natural to desire fairness. So trust the Most High to handle justice when, in His time and in His way. All you have to do is call upon Him and focus on forgiveness and healing rather than revenge. Revenge is not for you to carry out. That's for the Father. So the context in Psalm 55 is traditionally associated with King David, possibly during the time of Absalom. Who was Absalom? His son. Rebellion and betrayal by his own counselor as well. You can find the story in 2 Samuel 15, verse 17 to 17. David's heartache stems from the treachery from his own son and also from someone who was his close personal counselor. And people that he trusted betrayed him. That's why his prayer was so intense. And you too can also be intense. So let's look at the lessons there. It is okay, family, to express honest, raw emotions to Yah. King David's words reflect genuine pain. And the Bible shows us that we can bring our deepest hurts, our strongest emotions to Yahuwah. Why? Because we should not be in fear. that He's going to judge us when we're talking like this. Yahuwah, we should be able to go to Him without fear of judgment. What did we not see? Was King David turning the other cheek? What we did see, he was real with his emotion. Okay? So, the lesson again we need to take away from these passages, when you have been betrayed, don't bottle up your anger or your sorrow. Abba Yah welcomes your honesty. Prayer is not just for calm and composed moments. No, it's also for the raging storms that betrayal brings with all its debris. So just be honest. And the reality of human nature, even the most trusted people in your circle can fail you, family. Betrayal is a part of the human experience as seen throughout scriptures. Because someone is close to you does not mean he or she cannot betray you. Let me say that again. Just because you know someone for 20 years and you have a very close relationship and you have stories together does not mean that person cannot betray you. Why? Because they're human beings. Apply wisdom and discernment and accept that people are fallible. This doesn't mean, however, to become cynical and distrust everybody, but instead recognize the imperfection in human relationships. Yes, they are there and there always will be there. So we need to recognize the imperfection of humans, that they are fallible. So one of the questions we need to ask, what did King David do when he found out that he was betrayed? Simple. The simplest thing that he did. He turned to the Most High for comfort, and so can you. Don't turn to your neighbors. Don't turn, as I said earlier, to your texting on your WhatsApp and your Facebook and your phone call, telling the whole world what this person did to you. Take it to the Father in prayer. While human relationships may disappoint you, I can guarantee you that Elohim remains faithful. You might have friends who are unfaithful to you, but you will have the Most High who is permanently faithful to you always. And we need to learn also that evil breeds destruction. And Psalm 55:15 say, "For evil of every kind is in their dwelling and in their hearts, in their midst." And the verse pointed out also that evil will dwell within betrayers. That's where it starts from, ultimately leading to their downfall. Sin and treachery, family, often lead to self-destruction, just like how we saw Judas Iscariot ended up. How did he ended up? After he betrayed our Messiah, what did he do? He hanged himself. And it is exactly how the enemy works. He never shows you the ending of the story. He just gets you to begin, just like he did in the Garden of Eden. And we all know how that ended up. Here we are today. So avoid harboring bitterness when someone hurts you. I know it's difficult, but when you have been betrayed by the Judas spirit, please avoid harboring bitterness or engaging in deceit. It doesn't help. Betrayal and wrongdoing don't just harm others, it corrupts the heart of the betrayer. And we see the evidence of the corrupt heart in King David's son Absalom. It always starts in the heart. And we also see the manifestation of his counselor, King David's counselor. And not long after that, the manifestation shows up, betrayal. Anchor your trust in Yah, who will never betray you, family. He will never forsake you. Let his love and stability heal the wounds of betrayal. Now let's look at Micah, another scripture, Micah 7, chapter verse 2, to verse 2 to 7, from the Amplified Version. The godly man has perished from the earth, and there is none upright among men. They all lie in wait for blood. Each hunts his brother with a net. Verse 3. Both their hands are put forth and are upon what is evil to do it diligently. The prince and the judge ask for a bribe, and the great man utters his evil desire. Thus, they twist between them the course of justice. Oh, I'm sure you can relate to that. That's nothing new on this planet today, is there? The best of them, verse 4, is like a barrier. The most upright or the straightest is like a thorn hedge. Did you hear that? The best of them is like a thorn. Best of what these judges and these people above you, they look in their nice suits and the big jobs they have, does not mean that they are straight. Say the most upright or the straightest is like a thorn hedge. The day of your watchman, even of Yah's judgment and your punishment has come. Now shall be their perplexity and confusion. Trust not, verse 5, trust not in a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend. Keep the doors of your mouth from her who lies in your bosom. Look at that, verse 5. Do not trust a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend. And some of you are hurting today because you've put your trust in a neighbor and you've put your trust in a so called friend, and they end up betraying you. And here we see it's telling you, trust not a neighbor and put no confidence in a friend. Why? Because they're human beings and they are weak. Lesson: betrayal and division have infiltrated even the most intimate of relationships, family. Your friends, your family, your spouse turn against one another. This reflects the breakdown of social trust. Betrayal, I can guarantee you, is still around because what? Of human nature. And while it's important to be cautious, this passage reminds us that our ultimate trust must rest in the Most High. The Most High. Relationships may fail, but Yah remains faithful. So, family, build your foundation on Him. Why? Because He is faithful. And if we look at verse 6, for the sons of man, he's saying we should build a relationship on him, because verse 6 tells us the reason. For the son dishonors the father, the daughter rise up against her mother, the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men, members of his own house. There you go. And the key point in verse 2 in Micah, the godly man has perished from the earth, and there is none upright among men. So the lessons we can learn from Micah laments the moral collapse of society, where corruption and violence are widespread. Even leaders and judges are driven by greed and selfishness. They are not exempt from betrayal. It's rampant today. And the application we need to learn from this, that in times of moral decline, it's important to stand firm in your faith and integrity, even if you feel isolated. The absence of upright people challenges us, family, to become the light in the darkness, in the dark places that we may see. So you must be conscious of him or of her, as Micah said, stated in verse 5, said, trust not in a neighbor, but put no confidence in a friend, and you should keep the doors of your mouth from her who lies in your bosom. You can't get any closer than your bosom. Yes, and we do have corrupt leadership. Both hands are skilled in doing evil. The ruler demands gifts, and the judge accepts bribes. Nothing new. And why those in power abuse their authority, society suffers. Corrupt leaders create systems that serve personal interest over justice and righteousness. They can betray the same person that's in court coming looking for justice, and because they've been bribed, send someone to prison, and you know the story. For something which should have been 2 years, give them 5 years instead, because they're so corrupt. We can also see betrayal come through distrust and broken relationships. And so we do not, again, trust a neighbor, put no confidence in a friend. Because why? Betrayal and division have infiltrated even the most intimate relationships. And as I said earlier, it comes from friends, can come from family, it can come through your spouse, the wife or the husband, against one another. And as I said, it works and shows that society has broken down. And talking about friendship, I had a story. This is real. Someone I used to see this man sitting on the bench all the time. Lives in the UK. And someone I was saying, relating this message to this person, saying, I keep seeing this gentleman with his cat and his shoes always so shine. And he said to me, do you know the story about that? And I said, no. This gentleman went into the army and he came back as a soldier. He left his friend in charge of his business and his wife. And when he came back, I don't know how many years he was in the army for, maybe 3 years, 2 or 3 years, I don't know. But when he came home from the war, his best friend took his wife and stole his business. And with that, he just packed up relationship with humans and started relating to his cat. And he sat on a bench and become like live homeless. He was so shocked and traumatized that someone who he called his best friend took his wife and took his business. And he said he trusts no human being. He rather trusts his cat. And that's why we saw him all the time sitting on a bench. His shoes are always polished, which was a giveaway because of the army. And that's what friends can do you. It's terrible. So while it's important to be cautious, remember these passages remind us that our ultimate trust must rest in Yahuwah. Relationships may fail, but He never fails us. So you must and we must build our foundation on Him. Now, we also know a man's enemies are members of his own household. In verse 6, a man's enemies are the members of his own household. How deep is that? That in your own household, nothing can cut as deep as when you're betrayed by a family member. And I'm sure some of you might have experienced this. We also learn the division within families reflects how deeply sin affects relationships. And when people stay away from Yah, even familiar bonds can fracture. So the application we need to seek reconciliation and seek peace within your family. Uphold forgiveness and love. Recognize in family that spiritual warfare often targets where? It always targets relationships and the closest ones to you. And in Micah again, it paints a sobering picture of society and how society has decayed. And if we look in verse 7, it tells us, but as for me, I will look expectantly for Yahuwah and with confidence in him. I will keep watch. I will wait with confidence, expectation for Elohim of my salvation. My Elohim will hear me. That's Micah chapter 7, verse 2 to 6. Ultimately, we see that shifts towards hope. There is hope and restoration after you've been betrayed. Even in betrayal and brokenness, Yah's faithfulness remains our only anchor family. No one can bail us out except the Most High. So let's look at some reflection questions. Is there someone in your life whose betrayal still affects you? And if it does, what have you done about it? Have you prayed about it? Have you brought it to the Father? How can you bring that hurt to Yah today for healing? Bring it. Bring it, family, in prayer to your Father and let Him, only Him alone can remove the pain of that betrayal that you have experienced. And if you were the betrayer, you should still take it in prayer and repent and ask forgiveness and let the Holy Father of Heaven navigate you back with the right condition of your heart. Psalm 55 teaches us that betrayal, while painful, can lead us to deep reliance on Yah's unwavering presence. And we also need to acknowledge the desire for justice. We saw that David longs for justice, but he entrusted to Yah. Rather than taking matters into his own hands, he sought Yah. And this should echo the principle of leaving vengeance to the Most High, not take it on ourselves. Okay, let's go to Matthew chapter 26, another example, verses 31 to 35. Then Yahushua and Mashiach said to them, you will all fall away because of me this night, disillusioned about me, confused, and some even ashamed of me. For it is written in the scriptures, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. Verse 32, but after I am raised to life, I will go ahead of you, leading the way to Galilee. Verse 33, Peter which is Kepha in Hebrew, replied to him, though they all fall away because of you and doubt and disown you, I will never fall away. And Yahushua Mashiach said to him, I assure you and most solemnly say to you, this night, before a rooster crows, you will completely deny me 3 times. And Peter said to the Messiah, even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you. And all the disciples said the same thing. Now, let's look if Peter kept his word. Let's look at Matthew chapter 26, verse 69 to 75. Matthew 26, verses 69 to 75. Now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and the servant girl came to him, saying, you also were with Yeshua of Galilee. But he denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you're saying. Verse 71. And when he had gone up to the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, this fellow also was with Yahushua of Nazareth. Verse 72. But again he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. Verse 73. And a little later those who stood by came up and said to him, to Peter, surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you. Then he began to curse. Oh, yes, he was cursing and swear, saying, I do not know the man. Can you imagine? Immediately a rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the word of Yahushua, who had said to him, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. So he went out and wept bitterly. Now, listeners, before you turn your nose up at Peter and said, how could he? Just wait a moment. Let's look at Peter's name in Hebrew and its meaning. Well, his meaning is Kepha in Hebrew, meaning what? Rock or stone. And let's look at the cause of his betrayal. Overconfidence in his own strength. Peter believed his faith was strong, just like some of us do, and that he would live up to his name, Rock, and that he was unshakable, underestimating his vulnerability. And lack of spiritual readiness, family, can get us into all sorts of trouble. And here we see the rock, Kepha, Kefa, Hebrew spelling for his name, falling apart by betraying who? His master, because he truly believed he could not do such a terrible thing. And he meant it when he said it. That should be a lesson to all of us. And all I want to say here, until you are faced in a certain situation, you don't know your own heart and how you would react. And we cannot begin to think, but we can be so quickly to judge rather than saying, therefore the grace of Yah goes I. You can become so overconfident in your own strength and without realizing that you too are quite capable of the act of betrayal. Now let's look. What did the Messiah do after Peter denied him? What did he do? Let's find the answer in Luke 22, verse 61. Luke 22, verse 61, Amplified Version. Yahushua turned and looked at Peter, and Peter remembered the word of the Messiah, how he had told him, before a rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. Question. How many times your Messiah turned and looked at you, family? Let me ask that again. How many times your Messiah turned and looked at you to remind you of all the broken promises you have made to him, you made to yourself, and also to others? How many times before you start judging Kepha? Next question. How do you think the Messiah looked at him? Was he surprised? Was he frustrated? Was he ashamed? What do you think? Now, if you're a child of the Most High, then your understanding of how the Messiah looked at Kepha is fundamental to your perception of how he looks at you when you sin. Let me repeat that. If you are a child of the Most High, then your understanding of how the Messiah looked at Kepha when he denied him, it's fundamental to your perception of how he looks at you when you have denied him, betrayed him over and over again with false promises. So, what are the lessons to be learned from the experience of betrayal? While betrayal can be an incredibly painful and challenging ordeal, it also presents an opportunity for self reflection, family, and it also provides growth and wisdom. And some of the reasons why did he betray Yahweh? We can learn some lessons. Fear of persecution. Peter was afraid for his life in the heat of the moment, so fear overwhelmed his loyalty. Peter's words were, "I don't know the man," highlights the instinct for self-preservation, especially regarded as a basic instinct in human beings and animals. We have that. In the heat of the moment, fear will overcome. Fear will overcome us. Fear will overwhelm us and overwhelm our loyalty. And that's exactly what happened to Kepha. So the lesson to remember that fear can lead to making poor decisions. Fear can drive us to act in ways we never expected. And Peter's fear led him to deny Yahweh. But remember this, it didn't define him. Why? Because he was forgiven. But also we learn that overconfidence in strength, recognize your weakness. Peter believed his faith was unshakable, underestimating his vulnerability. And overestimating our strength makes us prone to failure. Let me say that overestimating your strength make you prone to failure. Like Peter, we must acknowledge our human frailty and depend on Yah's strength alone. You should daily cultivate, family, humility in your faith journey, recognizing that anyone, including you, can fall under pressure when it comes to betrayal. Face fear with faith in difficult situations. Pause and pray before reacting impulsively, because we have a tendency of doing that. And after Peter's denial, Yahuwah reinstated him. So failure is not final. And if we look in the book of John 21:15-17, we're not going to read it, but those are the scriptures, we can see what happened in John. I'll repeat that, John 21, verses 15-17. We see that demonstrating that failure can lead to greater strength and purpose, that he was forgiven, and the Messiah went on to use Peter, even ask him 3 times, because he denied him 3 times. Do you love me? 3 times he asked him. So don't let failure be your end of. No, it should be your beginning and help you and strengthen you. Don't let past failures stop you. Habayah can restore you and use you just as he did with Kepha. And Peter's denial of Yahushua is a powerful story of human weakness, fear, and ultimately redemption is at hand. Redemption is at hand for you, my family. So here's a breakdown of why Peter betrayed Yeshua and the lessons we can learn from it. We need to recognize our weakness, we need to cultivate humility, and need to walk in a faith journey. We need to remember that fear can lead to poor decisions, drive us to act in ways we never expected. And Peter's fear led him to deny Yeshua, but it didn't define him. Okay? Failure. So we need to know also that failure is not final. And we can learn so much from this. So, as again, let me reiterate, do not let fear overcome you. You can be restored. And just like our Kepha was restored. How many times, family, the question, have you betrayed confidence? How many times have you betrayed a confidence? Someone told you a secret and you promised it was for your ears only. And the first chance you got, you broke that promise and shared what you have been told to another friend, betraying them with your own mouth. So, a good place to start is with yourself and then repent. Stay spiritually vigilant. Regular prayer and connection with Abba Yah will equip you to withstand trials because redemption and forgiveness are available. Okay? Peter's story shows that betrayal and denial can be forgiven. Yahweh's love and grace are greater than our mistakes. Let me repeat that. The Most High's love, the Messiah's love, Father and Son love, our grace are greater than our mistakes. So extend grace to yourself and to others. Embrace second chances, family, and seek reconciliation. And the closing thought I have in this subject: Peter's betrayal is not a story of shame, but of hope. His failure became a foundation for his growth and leadership. No matter how deeply you stumble, where you have betrayed someone or someone had betrayed you, Yah's grace can restore you and the person who betrayed you, making you stronger and also making them stronger than before. Honoring your intuition. Betrayal can also be a powerful reminder to trust our instincts and honor our gut feelings. Often there might be some subtle signals or a red flag that we overlooked or dismissed. The lesson here is to listen to your own intuition and not ignore those internal nudges that tells us something is amiss. Listen to them, family. Have I been completely honest with the Most High about my feelings related to this betrayal? Ask yourself those questions. Who have I betrayed lately? Who have betrayed me? And the saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies, but it comes mostly from within. And these biblical examples reveal that betrayal often stems from human weaknesses like greed, jealousy, fear, and manipulation. By recognizing these patterns in our lives, family, we can build a stronger relationships and approach betrayal with wisdom and grace. And my final scripture for tonight will be found in the book of James, chapter 1, 14 to 15, from the Amplified Version. But each one is tempted when he's dragged away, enticed and baited to commit sin by his own worldly desire, lust, passion. Verse 15. Then with the illicit desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin has run its course, it gives birth to death. So the conclusion: we can all be tempted in betrayal. We can be betrayed. Often seems from unaddressed desires, comes from greed, jealousy, pride, fear, or personal dissatisfaction. And understanding this, family, will help us not only detect potential betrayal, but also examine our own hearts to ensure we are not betraying ourselves or betraying others. A Judas often operates in secrecy, motivated by personal gain or dissatisfaction. Family, reflect on people who display inconsistent behavior with you, gossip, or show signs of envy. This isn't about fostering suspicion, but about developing discernment. It's very important that you develop discernment in your relationships to avoid betrayal. But before you start with others, look inwards on yourself. Hallelujah. We have come to the end of this lesson. If you have found this lesson helpful, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe with someone who might need to hear this message. So please also hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Until next time, stay rooted in His Word, trust His plans, family, and walk confidently in His guidance. Shalom.